Imagine a body whose skin is burning to ash at every single moment. The very next instant, new skin grows back, only to burn once more. Not just once or twice, but billions upon billions of times. Not for a single year or a single era. By earthly reckoning, 10 billion years have passed. O our Lord, deliver us from this place just this once. Send us back to the world. In the deepest pit of hell, curled up inside a chest of fire, lies a tormented soul, an entity writhing in agony. Its face is grotesquely disfigured. His eyes are bulging from their sockets. Swarms of fiery insects writhe across his entire body. He attempts to scream, yet no sound escapes his throat. Only billowing, scalding smoke. Who is this entity? It is none other than the accursed Iblis, the very one who declared, "I am superior to Adam. Why should I bow down before that insignificant figurine of clay?" Today, 10 billion years later, what has become of that arrogance? What is he enduring now, deep within the abyss of hell? In this world, time is a precious commodity to us. Yet in the hereafter, and particularly in hell, time itself becomes a curse. Allah the Almighty granted Iblis a lifespan extending until the day of resurrection. He spent that entire existence in sin and deceit. But once the day of judgment had passed and eternity began, his true torment and humiliation commenced. Today, drawing upon the pages of history and the narratives of the Hadith, we shall paint a scene so chilling that it will freeze the very blood in us. Why would Allah the Almighty liken him to a dog? And what, indeed, will be his final utterance? Among the various levels of hell, the most terrifying is Hawiyah, the bottomless abyss. It is a place of such extreme heat that the fires of this world would seem like ice in comparison. Exegetes state that Iblis's punishment will be the most severe, for he is the very root of all sin. For 10 billion years, he has been enduring a specific form of torment. According to certain accounts, deep within the lowest depths of hell lies a massive chest, or coffin, forged entirely of fire. Iblis has been confined within this chest and locked inside. Do you know why? Because, during his time in the world, he took arrogant pride in his minions, his legion of devils. Today, he is utterly alone. For thousands upon thousands of years, he has beheld nothing but darkness. The sound of his own breathing echoes back to him, a reverberation that drives him ever closer to madness. This chest of his is heavier than he yearns to breathe. Yet there is no air, only the toxic smoke of fire. Inside that chest, he has been granted no room to move. He attempts to turn to the right, but the wall to his right is made of fire. He attempts to turn to the left, but the wall to his left is studded with thorns. Occasionally, he murmurs, "A little water, just a single drop." But instead of water, molten copper drips from the ceiling of the chest, seeping in through the crown of his head and flowing out through the soles of his feet. The heat of that molten copper causes his brain to boil and seethe, much like water boiling in a pot upon a stove. The sheer intensity of the agony makes him long to lose consciousness. Yet there is no respite, no opportunity for oblivion. For 10 billion years, this same punishment endures, without pause, without sleep. Even the other inhabitants of hell can at the very least see one another. But Iblis has been confined to a state of absolute solitude. This very isolation is suffixed. It is stated in Sahih Hadith that the person in hell who receives the lightest punishment will be made to wear merely 2 sandals fashioned from fire. Just 2 sandals. Yet the heat emanating from these sandals is no ordinary heat. The moment he puts them on, an unimaginable electric shock-like heat will surge from the soles of his feet, striking directly at his brain. Just as water boils and bubbles furiously atop a stove, or as the starchy water from cooking rice boils over, his brain will seethe and bubble within his skull. Writhing in excruciating agony, His brain will melt into liquid and pour out through his nose and ears like a stream of molten lava. That individual will scream out, "By Allah, no one else is being subjected to a punishment more severe than this." Yet he remains unaware that this constitutes level 1, the very lowest tier of hell. Now steel your heart and contemplate the fate of Iblis. The individual wearing those fiery sandals is situated far removed from. In much the same way, if the punishment for ordinary inhabitants of hell is merely the searing sting of a burning candle, then Iblis's punishment is to remain submerged in the molten lava of a living volcano. From the dawn of creation to its very end, every sin committed, every murder, every rape, and every act of shirk, polytheism, a share of the culpability for each hath accumulated upon Iblis's shoulders. Consequently, the color of his fire is not red, his fire is pitch black. Had the individual enduring the mildest punishment in hell experienced even a single drop of Iblis's torment, he would have been reduced to ashes in an instant. With every passing nanosecond, Iblis endures an intensity of burning that could not be replicated even if every nuclear bomb on Earth were to detonate simultaneously. Hark! If the inhabitants of this world were ever to hear his screams of agony, every human heart on Earth would cease beating forever, paralyzed by sheer terror and dread. Once, he was radiant to behold. Today, he is hideous, black and charred like coal. Such a foul stench emanates from his body that, had it ever reached the earthly realm, every living creature on earth would have perished from the smell alone. His eyelashes burned away long ago. Now, molten lava cascades from his eye sockets, melting the flesh right off his cheeks. He attempts to cover his face with his hands, but his hands have become rigid and numb, hardened like coal. Tormented by a hunger born of going without food for eons, his insides burn with an agonizing fire. He screams in the throes of this unbearable hunger. At that moment, the angels drag him beneath the zaqqum tree. Iblis is then forced to chew and swallow its thorny fruit. He, who in the earthly realm used to tempt humans with the allure of forbidden foods, alcohol, and usury. Today, the thorns of the zaqqum are lodged in his throat. They tear and lacerate the very flesh within his gullet. As the thorns descend into his stoe, he screams out, "Water! Give me water! My insides are tearing apart." At that moment, he is given hamim, boiling, scalding water. As he brings the water close to his mouth, the flesh of his face sloughs off. Yet driven by the agony of his thirst, he drinks that fiery liquid. And the instant he swallows it, his intestines melt away and spill out through his rectum. He stares at his own melted entrails, attempting to shove them back inside his abdomen, but he cannot. It is an unbearable spectacle. Just imagine, after his insides have melted away and spilled out, Allah restores him to his original healthy state once again. Why? So that the punishment may begin anew. The sight of his flesh and skin fusing back together is even more terrifying. Upon being restored, he finds not a single moment of relief. Rather, he recoils in redoubled terror, for he knows that the torment is about to resume immediately. In this manner, 10 billion years have passed. However, the most harrowing scene of 10 billion years, once all arrogance had crumbled into dust, Iblis and his followers cast their gaze toward the heavens for the very last time. Iblis recalled that, countless eons ago, he too had worshipped this very Allah. He thought, perhaps the merciful Allah might cast a glance upon him just this once. With a broken heart and a voice twisted by torment, he cried out in anguish, "Rabbana akhrijna minha." Allah, hear my plea. I know I have sinned, but where is your mercy? Grant me deliverance. He pleaded, O our Lord, deliver us from this place just once, send us back to the world. We shall sin no more. We shall perform righteous deeds. If we should sin again, then truly we are the wrongdoers. All of hell fell silent. Everyone waited for a response. Iblis thought that perhaps his past acts of worship might finally serve him well this day. But no. The great Allah, the sovereign of the universe, then issued a rebuke more agonizing than the very fires of hell itself. In a voice, La tukalimun. Do not speak to me. This single sentence shatters Iblis's very core. He realizes that the bond between him and Allah has been severed forever. The door to Allah's mercy has been permanently sealed. The agony of this rejection is 100,000 times more excruciating than the torment of fire. From that moment on, Iblis will never again dare to lift his gaze toward the heavens. He will merely whimper like a beast. Occasionally, Allah brings him forth from his confinement, a chest, and places him before the common prisoners of hell. This constitutes yet another facet of his punishment, humiliation and disgrace. When the inhabitants of hell, Pharaoh, Nimrod, Abu Lahab, and the sinners of the world catch sight of Iblis, they are driven to a frenzy. All of this is because of you, Iblis, someone suddenly screams from the crowd. There he is, the very devil whose deceptions landed me here today. Seize him, tear him apart. Forgetting their own torments, the damned surge, judging by the ferocity of their wrath. It seems that even if they were to chew Iblis to pieces, their rage would remain unappeased. Iblis then screams out, attempting to flee. He pleads to the angels, "Save me from them. Cast me back into the fire." Those who once acknowledged him as their master and leader in the worldly life are now tearing at him and devouring him like dogs. After 10 billion years, he has neither a friend nor a companion. He stands utterly alone. Having endured 10 billion years of punishment, humiliation, and disgrace, Iblis is finally permitted, by the command of Allah, to speak this day. He is about to deliver his final address to his followers. Trembling uncontrollably, he ascends the pulpit. Billions of the damned fall silent. Save for the roar of the flames, not a sound is to be heard. All wait in anticipation, perhaps hoping that Iblis might offer them some glimmer of good news. Yet what Iblis actually says proves to be the final nail in their coffin. I merely called out. I simply beckoned. Yet you were the ones waiting for that very call. You were the ones who committed sins the moment you desired them. Therefore, do not blame me today. Blame yourselves. Today, I cannot even save myself. How then could I possibly save you? What a cruel reality. Upon hearing these words, the hopes of the inhabitants of hell were extinguished forever. They realized that these 10 billion years had been merely the beginning. Eternity would unfold in this very manner. The address concluded. The angels once again fastened the fiery shackles around Iblis's neck. He was being dragged back toward that iron chest. He knew that for the next 10 billion years, he would once again have to remain confined within that chest, alone. He knew that Allah would never again look upon him with an eye of mercy. His punishment would continue ceaselessly. His skin would burn away, only to regenerate anew. He would consume zakum and drink hamim. He used to think, perhaps after 10 million years, or 1 billion years, or even after 100 billion years, death would eventually claim him. And once death arrived, everything would be over. No more pain, no more fire. It was by cherishing this false hope, this entity called death, deep within his heart, that he had managed to survive for so long. Yet the day that final beacon of hope was extinguished would prove to be the most terrifying day of his entire existence. At the conclusion of the day of judgment, the angels would present a gray-colored ram upon the wall separating the inhabitants of paradise from the inhabitants of hell. Suddenly, all of hell would fall silent. Both groups, the dwellers of paradise and the dwellers of hell, would stare on, holding their breath in anticipation. The angels would then ask, in a voice like thunder, "Do you recognize this? This is Maut, this is death, the very thing we feared in the worldly life, and the very thing we now yearn for as the Harbi.